So today we are speaking with Mary Heath, and she is a stress management consultant, a life coach, and a therapist, and she's worked for 30 years in mental health, helping patients to overcome stress, anxiety, and depression. She's embraced other therapies such as EFT, CBT, and NLP, and developed and delivered courses, workshops, and seminars in her field. And she's also a trained pranayama yoga teacher, which she also uses some of those techniques in the book. And today we are going to be discussing Get Your Life Back, a 12-week journey to overcome stress, anxiety, and depression. Thank you for being with us. Welcome to the show, Mary.
Oh, thank you, Marie. It's lovely to be on your show. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. Well, it is really stress, anxiety, and depression is so rampant these days that we didn't used to talk about it as much, but when you start talking about it, you start seeing how common it is.
Very, very common, unfortunately, these days. And you're quite right. Years and years ago, when I was a young person growing up, it was just never mentioned. I don't think I'd even heard the words stress, anxiety, and depression until I was in my 20s. But certainly over the last 30 or 40 years, it has increased at an enormous rate. So many people these days not only are suffering with stress and anxiety, depression, but they just don't know how to cope with it for so long. It can go on for so long. But because they have no coping strategies, they don't have the necessary tools and techniques to deal with it, then the stress becomes worse, and they get themselves into a terrible vicious circle where they become stressed about being stressed, anxious about being anxious, and so on. And it just escalates sometimes out of control.
Mary, as someone who's dealt with depression before, quite serious depression. I know from my own experience that when the anxiety and the stress set in and you don't have the coping skills, what tends to happen is you let things kind of go in your life. And then eventually, depression can be cyclical. So we always end up feeling better. But if you let everything go while you're depressed, then when you feel better, you're building back up from square one again. Do you find that happens often?
Well, yes, it does. And I think also, even if people do develop some coping strategies, or they go and have therapy, or they go to a yoga class or whatever, these things can help to get them, back on the road to recovery. But then they tend to let the coping strategies slip because they think, oh, I'm feeling better now, I'm okay, I don't need to do this anymore. And yes, it is cyclical, and it comes round again. And certainly in the clinics and hospitals where I worked, it didn't happen that often, to be fair, but people did come back. Sometimes it would be within a year, sometimes 2 years. It depended on how far they slipped again before they sought help and came back for more treatments or more therapy. And it is a great shame that this actually happens. I think certainly in the UK, it's so difficult to get the necessary help, the appropriate help, that I've thought for a very long time that if stress management and relaxation or yoga or meditation, whatever, was actually taught in our schools and universities and colleges, then people would perhaps gather enough coping skills so that they could go back to them time and time again. But unfortunately, that's just not happening enough.
Absolutely. That's one of the things here. I don't know about in the UK, but here in Canada, if you need to see a psychiatrist, that is covered by our medical care system. However, it's very, you get a very generally a short appointment. Usually it's just 5 to 15 minutes to re-prescribe medication, and things like talk therapy, skill building. There are ways that you can get access to that, but it is difficult. You have to jump through a lot of hoops, and a lot of the time it's not funded.
Absolutely. It's the same here with our national health system. We tend to have doctors who too quickly prescribe medication because A, they don't have the time to spend with the patient, and B, they know that the only thing that they can offer them is 6 weeks here of cognitive behavioral therapy, and the waiting list for that is sometimes months long, waiting so long to see someone. People over here only get referred to a psychiatrist if they are really very ill indeed. I worked in secondary mental health, and by the time we got the patients referred from the GPs, they were very poorly indeed, and so it takes a much longer time to help these people to recover, unfortunately. Whereas, if they were given some help and pointed in the right direction and given some coping skills, right from the start, as soon as they realized they needed help, then they wouldn't become so ill, and they wouldn't necessarily take so long to recover and overcome their stress. And again, in secondary mental health here, their stress has usually turned into anxiety with anxiety disorders and depression. So, yeah, I think the whole system across the world needs looking at, and as I mentioned earlier, perhaps giving help before it's needed. So giving help in schools and to young people. And maybe we need to start teaching parents how to teach their children to cope more easily with the demands that are put upon them throughout their life. But these demands start at a very early age, and it's the same in Canada and the USA and everywhere you go, really. The pressure is enormous and too much to bear for so many people.
Well, thank goodness that you have written Get Your Life Back, a 12-week journey to overcome stress, anxiety, and depression. This is CITR 101.9 FM in Vancouver on the University of British Columbia campus from unceded Musqueam territory here in Vancouver. And of course, it is October 19th, 2015, which is voting day. So if you are listening live right now, please make sure that you go out and vote. If you live on the campus of UBC, you can vote on campus. If you want to know where to go to elections.ca. That website will tell you what kind of ID you need. You do need to bring ID. And if you have your voter registration card, that's great. But I think you can also download it and print it out. So go to elections.ca if you are at all unclear on what you need and where you need to go in order to vote. Please just do go out and vote. It's really important to maintain the rights that our parents and grandparents and the people who came before that fought so hard to get the rights and freedoms that we take for granted. So get off your butts, go out there and vote, especially if you're a young person. Bring your friends along and make sure, I don't care who you vote for, but go out and exercise that right and your civic duty. Again, back to the show, we're speaking with Mary Heath. She is the author of Get Your Life Back, a 12-week journey to overcome stress, anxiety, and depression. Now, Mary, you mentioned that in the UK, people can get prescribed 6 weeks of cognitive behavioral therapy, but there's a long wait list. So if someone was going through something like CBT, how similar and how different is your book to that kind of program?
Well, it's both similar and different, actually, Marie, because my book is divided into various categories, and one of the categories is actually CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy. In my book, each week there will be an exercise in CBT, or as I call it correct thinking, because, there may be some people out there who doesn't really know what cognitive behavioral therapy is. And so I call it correct thinking because in one way we need to correct our negative thoughts and challenge them and dispute them and try to change the thoughts into more rational and more positive thoughts. So it's correcting our thinking, but teaching them also that if you use correct thinking on a regular basis, then it can help so very, very much. I believe that everything begins with our thoughts. Our thoughts come from our belief system, which we picked up very early in childhood. But our thoughts actually create our feelings and our emotions, which result in our actions and behavior and eventually the outcome. And so if our thoughts are negative, then our feelings, behavior, and outcomes will also be negative. So throughout the book, I'm trying to point people in the right direction to think about what they're thinking about. And I think that's a really good thing for people to do, because we're thinking all the time. And certainly people who have been diagnosed with depression, about 70% of their thoughts during the day will be negative. And so the outcome will be negative too. So I help the reader to identify what their negative thoughts and beliefs might be, and then I help them to challenge them or question them or think about them in a different way, therefore producing a more positive outcome, which in the end results in you overcoming your stress, anxiety, depression, if you work hard at it anyway.
Well, and that's the thing. It can take a lot of energy to get on this road. So, I mean, there's 12 weeks, and I look in the first chapter of your book, you mentioned getting organized on day 4. And I'm like, no. I have to work for 12 weeks just to get the wherewithal to get organized, because the idea of organizing anything, it stresses me out.
Right. You're not a born organizer then.
No, I mean, I keep a day planner. I show up to things on time, but my place, like I have stuff, I've moved like 3 times. I keep meaning to get rid of things, and now they're all just stuffed in a storage room. I don't want to open the door and look at it. The idea of organizing my desk, it just, I get anxiety. So what I do is I don't organize it because it creates anxiety. So
right.
What do you recommend for someone like that?
Well, of course, avoiding it also creates anxiety.
Absolutely.
Because it just gets worse and worse in the end. People who are not very organized will probably be stressed, and they will get anxious about the fact that they're not organized. The two things go together, really. And this is why it's so early in my book. And it really is necessary. And although the book is set out into 12 weeks and then into days, and you take one day at a time, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do whatever the direction is on that particular day. And so if it takes you a week to get organized, that's okay, so long as you're focused and you are actually doing it and going through it methodically. And I think it does take some planning if you're not used to organizing. But it is important for you to do that, because without good organization, you will continue probably to have stress and anxiety. And as I say, as you procrastinate over it, it can just get worse and worse. And then the whole thing becomes so big, you can't open that door because it's too frightening. So just taking it in bite-sized chunks, really, and organizing a timetable or using your daily planner, as you say, to get organized. And once you're organized, you will feel so much better. And I'm sure you and everyone else can perhaps remember a time or a day when you did get organized and how much better you felt, and how much, that some baggage was taken off your shoulders. I'm sure I think you know instinctively that if you are more organized, you are going to feel better and more things get done.
Well, what about, Mary, because part of the reason I think that I've sort of moved my junk with me when I've gone is because I always plan on like having a yard sale or something like that, which can be, if I'm overwhelmed with stuff, then sorting through it and all of that can be overwhelming. I mean, do you ever recommend people? I don't like to throw things in the landfill, but then it just never gets thrown out. It never gets given away. It's just there.
Yeah. Well, it's. I'm not saying it's easy to do, but I think the first thing you have to do is to set a realistic goal. So maybe think of a day, maybe not this week, maybe not next week, but put a date down in your diary, put it on your daily planner, let it be a day when you're not working, and then make it be a day when there are no other things to distract you from it. And then set your plan. So you set your goal and then make your plan. So you could say, well, I'm going to do just one room at a time, or one wardrobe, or one chest of drawers at a time. And I think, what I do anyway, when I'm sorting through my things, because I do like to be organized because it just removes a lot of stress. So I'll get some garbage bags. I know they're called garbage bags there because I have lived in Canada, actually.
Where did you live?
I lived in New Brunswick in Fredericton.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, so you get your garbage bags.
Yeah, and so one is for stuff to go to the charity shop. You call them something else.
I think everyone knows what a charity shop, the thrift store.
Okay, that's fine. So some things that are usable, but they need to be things that you don't love anymore, or you don't need anymore, or you haven't used or worn it for, say, 2 years. If it's usable by someone else, put it in the bag for the charity shop. Then you'll have another bag or a box for rubbish, which you won't mind taking to the landfill. And so this is stuff that really has got no use whatsoever for anyone, and you don't like it, and you haven't used it for a long time, or it's broken, or it's out of date, or it's out of fashion, and put it in there. And then, set aside space for the things that you want to keep. So the things that you want to keep, you need to use them on a regular basis. You need to really enjoy or love wearing them or using them or reading them or playing with them or whatever. And I think if you have these separate sections for your things, it will be easier to get rid of the clutter. And if you do it one room at a time or 2 days taking a whole day to do 2 rooms, and then if you don't get it all done, that's fine. Just maybe do it again the following weekend, but keep going and keep putting it in your planner.
Yeah, I could. Oh my goodness! Every room I have stuff, even things like hair gel from like 3 years ago, and things that just need to go in the trash.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, but I spent $12 on that. I can't throw it away.
Well, I think you need to get over that.
Yeah, I need to. I do.
I haven't used it. It would probably be full of bacteria, and it needs to go. And just take a deep breath. If you're feeling anxious about it, just, tell yourself, I really don't need this, and I'll never use it again, so off it goes, and relax.
All right. Well, with that relaxing breath, it is time for a break. This is Synchronicity Talk Radio for your mind, body, and soul. I'm your host, Marie Benard. And right now we are speaking with Mary Heath. She is a stress management consultant, life coach, and therapist who's worked for 30 years in mental health and has helped patients to overcome stress, anxiety, and depression. She uses lots of different modalities, and she's written Get Your Life Back, a 12-week journey to overcome stress, anxiety, and depression. We'll be back with more Synchronicity in a moment. Welcome back to Synchronicity Talk Radio for your mind, body, and soul. I'm your host, Marie Benard, and today is voting day here in Canada, so get out there and vote October 19th. Make your voice be heard. You can go to elections.ca if you have any questions about that. And so right now we are speaking with Mary Heath. She is the author of Get Your Life Back, a 12-week journey to overcome stress, anxiety, and depression. And why 12 weeks, Mary?
Well, when I was working in community mental health, I devised and facilitated and delivered various courses, and they were in a group setting. And when I first started to do courses in stress management, they were for 6 weeks long, 6-week course. And then I found that actually that wasn't quite enough time, so I added on another 2 weeks, and that was good, and the results were even better. And then eventually I started doing other courses in various other things, such as self-esteem building and personal development and relaxation and so on. And as the years went by, I did just about every course I could find that would help me to help others with their stress and depression, etc. So eventually I had so many skills and tools and techniques that I wanted to pass on to people that I found myself actually increasing the length of the course to 12 weeks. And I found that the results of the 12-week courses were much better, and in fact, sometimes it was 100% success rate, where we could discharge the patients and they'd go off and we never saw them again. And so in the 12 weeks, I was able to teach as many things as I thought was important for the group member to learn. And when I came to write the book, I had this in mind, 12 weeks, that's the average time that most of my patients actually recovered fully. So I thought it would be a good idea to split the book into 12 sections or 12 weeks. And obviously, it's not a course as if you are attending a course, because courses you normally attend once a week. So what I've done in the book is divide the weeks into days as well. And so each day has a different subject and a different skill and a different tool or technique or therapy. And I feel that if the reader works through the book in 12 weeks, obviously they can take longer or they can do it quicker if they want to. But I really do believe that there is enough in those 12 weeks for someone to recover and get well and feel happier and feel more in control and get their lives back, basically.
Wonderful. And you also, Mary, have a CD to go along with the book. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. In the book, there are it's a very unique sequence of pranayama yoga breathing exercises. And they're quite simple to learn, extremely effective. And so I thought it would be a good idea to put the breathing exercises on a CD. Listening to my voice talking people through the exercise, I thought might be more helpful to perhaps a better way to learn them rather than reading through the exercise in the book. So the whole sequence is on the CD, and then there's a relaxation with creative visualization, and it lasts for about 25 minutes. So the CD is sold separate to the book, but it is a companion of the book.
Thanks, Mary. So when I first, when it was first recognized that I had depression, I was in my teens, but I think it had started long before that. When I was a child, actually, I found in my medical record there were records of me being very depressed when I was 10 years old, but nobody said anything to me. Nobody put me in therapy or anything. So it was interesting to find that out. But I know for myself that I didn't realize that I was depressed. I just knew I didn't feel good. I didn't want to do anything. So what are some of the warning signs to let people know that maybe it might be time for them to look at new coping strategies or to read your book, Get Your Life Back?
Well, it's a loaded question because we're all individuals and we're all unique individuals. That some of the symptoms might differ in certain people, but many of them are the same and they are easily recognized. And so you already mentioned that you knew that you didn't feel right, you didn't want to do anything. And this is one of the signs, really. So if anyone you notice is withdrawing from social life, not wanting to go out at all, not wanting to see their friends, maybe can't make telephone calls because of a lack of confidence, not only confidence but self-esteem as well. With depression comes an unfortunate side effect, which is having very low self-esteem. So they would also be very negative in their thinking, which I mentioned earlier. People who are depressed will probably have most of their thoughts in the negative attitude, and this will come across in what they say. So if they're using negative words like, I can't do that, or I'm stupid, I don't want to do anything, and you get the feeling that there's a hopelessness about them. But also there are other physical signs and symptoms. It may be that someone is not sleeping enough, not sleeping well, or sleeping too much. There might be a lack of appetite. They also might have digestive problems as well, because if someone is depressed, their stress levels are very, very high indeed, and the hormone cortisol will be coursing through the veins and causing havoc with the body. And obviously, there is a mind-body link here. And so someone who is depressed will not only have negative thoughts and feelings of sadness and hopelessness and helplessness, but they will also feel physically unwell as well, maybe aches and pains, headaches, migraines, nausea. There are quite a lot of symptoms that they might have. But I think it's important to take them along or advise them to go and see a doctor. And the doctor will ask a range of questions, and they would be able to diagnose them with depression if they have had those symptoms for 2 weeks or longer. And it's surprising, really, because someone would expect the symptoms for a diagnosis of depression. You'd think that they might have been going on for 6 months or more, but actually it's just 2 weeks. So if someone has profound sadness along with the mental, emotional, behavioral, and physical symptoms as well, if I had all of those for longer than 2 weeks, they could well be depressed, yeah.
Now, Mary, I actually mentioned your book to a friend of mine who has struggled with anxiety and depression for many years and has read there's an anxiety workbook, there's the CBT. I mean, he's done all of that. He's taken medication. Still on medication, I think, and has seen therapists and all of that. And when I mentioned the book, I said, "Oh, you can borrow it when I'm done the interview." And the response I got was, "Well, I've already done so many of those, and it's just not working." So, what do you say to a person in that situation?
Well, I used to come across a lot of patients who would swear that they'd done everything that they possibly could, and they still weren't better. But when I went in deeper with more and more questions, I did find out actually that they hadn't done everything, and they certainly weren't doing or practicing the skills regularly enough. So they might do a relaxation maybe once a week. They might go out and have some exercise for 15 minutes, or they might have had 6 weeks of CBT or whatever. But I think a person needs to be fully committed and take full responsibility for getting better. And if they do, then they need to practice the skills and techniques in my book. They need to practice them every day, really. And I can't guarantee that they would get better, but I can promise that, if they do it with total commitment, then it is possible to get better. And I know that because I did it myself many, many, many years ago. And as you said, I've worked in mental health for almost 30 years, and I've seen it happen thousands of times. I think your friend may be, I don't know, I'm not saying that they would be exaggerating when they say that they tried everything, but maybe it's worth another go. And practicing the breathing exercises that I recommend, and the relaxations and the meditations, and exercising every day, and getting organized, setting goals and achieving them on a regular basis. Also, in my book, there are some sections on understanding, so understanding stress, understanding anxiety, understanding depression, and so on. Because I think so many people actually don't understand what's actually happening to them, and so they worry and get anxious about what is happening to them. And again, there's another vicious circle. So it could be that your friend is in this vicious circle and doesn't quite know how to get off it. So I would suggest maybe they start again with 100% commitment, taking full responsibility, and actually working at it as if it's a job. I think when people are depressed, they don't want to do anything, and they'll maybe sit and fester and ruminate on things, and instead they need to be taking action. So take the action, but with more commitment, and start again, because I know that they can do it.
Thanks, Mary. And now I imagine doing something every day for 12 weeks, you're going to, number one, start a habit, and number two, you're going to build new neural pathways in your brain. But with a new skill and a new topic every day for 12 weeks, how much of this is something that you have to develop and do every day? Like, I mean, are you going to have to learn 12 weeks of new skills and then do all of that every single day?
No, not necessarily. There are certain things that you would need to do every day, such as the breathing exercises and the relaxation and thinking positively. But many of the directions you would only have to do once or maybe a couple of times. There are some sections on looking after yourself physically. So turning to a healthy eating regime. That's we eat every day, so it's not like a chore. It's just maybe changing your eating habits, and maybe changing your sleeping habits, exercising for about 4 times a week. Some of the things are just exercises in self-awareness. So writing down a list of achievements that you've had, listing all your successes, writing things down that make you happy or make you proud or make you feel confident. So each day is not necessarily going to keep adding and adding and adding. I've written the book in such a way that you can actually do these things. And also, you can take longer than 12 weeks if you want to. I mean, you can go for maybe 2 or 3 days without doing anything at all. But then you would have to pick it up again, so that you don't lose your motivation. But some of the things that you need to do every day are very enjoyable, like, just lying down and relaxing, for example, or meditating, or thinking about what you would like to do at the weekend, or how you would like to spend time with friends and relatives and so on. So it's not all hard. It's not, although I've talked about skills and techniques, it's not like you have to do something physical every day. It's not like that.
Welcome back to Synchronicity Talk Radio for your mind, body, and soul. I'm your host, Marie Benard, and we are speaking right now with Mary Heath. She is the author of Get Your Life Back, a 12-week journey to overcome stress, anxiety, and depression. Mary, what's one of your favorite exercises or skills in your book?
Well, my favorite and the most important and number one on day one in my book is actually living in the moment, taking one day at a time. It's focusing as much as you possibly can. It's not easy to everyone, but with practice, it can become easy, just focusing on the here and now. Much of our stress and anxiety comes from the past or the future. And if we're dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, we're going to be stressed. Whereas if you're focusing on what you're actually doing at any given time, then you are preventing that stress forming in the first place. So it's a matter of detaching from the past and the future and living in the here and now, because we'll never get it again. So I'm a great believer in cherishing each moment as it's presented to you. And that's number one.
Awesome. Well, focusing on the present moment, I totally agree. I feel like it's a really worthy practice, and really all we have is this moment right now.
Yeah.
And at the same time, when someone is feeling anxiousness or stress or sadness, it can be very difficult to focus on the present moment. Like yesterday, I was experiencing some anxiety, and I don't often get symptoms of anxiety, but I was having it yesterday, and I was trying to focus on the present moment, and I just kept feeling it, and the worries and the thoughts kept going. And so then I would try and sing a song or do something to break that up. But it really was quite a struggle.
Yes, and of course it can be. It is difficult to be distracted from your worrying thoughts. But there are quite a few exercises in the book. There's one called the stop technique, which is very, very effective. And what you do with this is you put a rubber band around your wrist, and when you catch yourself worrying or feeling anxious, you snap the elastic band and take a deep breath at the same time. And as you breathe out, count and focus on the numbers as you're breathing out. So already you've been distracted from the thought that you were having, and you're focusing on the breath and the counting and the little bit of pain in your wrist. And when you get to 0, you repeat a positive affirmation, so such as, I'm calm, I'm confident, I'm in control now. And maybe repeat it several times. And hopefully it would have taken your mind off what it was you were worrying about, and help you get back to what it is you're actually doing. So that's one technique. I've mentioned the breathing exercises quite a lot because they are particularly effective for anxiety. And so both in the book and the CD, the breathing exercise for anxiety, it's quite easy to follow, quite easy to do. And if you practice often during the day, it will prevent your worrying or your anxious thoughts even arising, because the breathing exercise will actually switch off the stress response or the fight-flight response and help you to maintain control. So I can talk you through that if you're interested in learning it now.
Sure. Well, I'm just going to put the name of your book out there again. Get Your Life Back, a 12-week journey to overcome stress, anxiety, and depression. And we are speaking with Mary Heath. She is the author. And if you want to find out more about her, you can go to her website, maryheath.co.uk. So, yes, would you walk us through this stop technique?
Through the stop technique or the breathing technique?
Which one were you going to do? The breathing?
Well, I've done the stop technique.
Okay.
You know, you would snap the elastic band and breathe. Okay, so I'll talk you through the breathing exercise. So you need to take your attention down to your lower abdomen and feel your abdominal muscles, and just using those muscles, draw the tummy right in towards your spine. You know, if you have to squeeze through a very narrow gap and you pull your tummy in, it's like that. So you pull the tummy right in, and then you hold for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Keep it in, then you breathe all the way in and all the way out, and then you hold again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then let the tummy out. So just doing that once will help. It's a start, but there are 2 more levels of that breathing exercise where you pull the tummy in 2 equal steps and hold for 10 seconds. So once you've learned that exercise and you feel confident that you're doing it correctly, whenever you begin to realize that you're feeling anxious, so you might recognize physical symptoms such as shallow breathing or racing heart or sweaty palms, or if you catch your thoughts and there I go again, I'm worrying and feeling anxious about so-and-so, do the exercise and maybe do it 2 or 3 times, and it will bring your anxiety right down, and with practice, the anxiety will fade away completely. But if you do this exercise together with others in the sequence, they really do act as a preventative. And I have known people who have suffered anxiety, for quite a long time, and just by learning the breathing exercises, they can get their anxiety under control. So it's very, very powerful.
Wonderful. Mary, so just to clarify, when you are doing the stop technique and you're snapping the elastic and doing the counting, is that the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 while you're breathing? Is that the counting you're talking about?
No, that's a completely different exercise.
Oh, okay.
So the stop technique is a technique on its own. Yes, you do take a deep breath in and out, and you're counting down from 10 to 0. But the breathing exercise I've just taken you through, which involves the tummy muscles and the breathing in and out and the holding, that's a pranayama yoga breathing exercise. So it's quite, it's a different technique altogether.
Okay. And so I can imagine, I know that when anxiety comes up, our breathing, like you even mentioned, our breathing gets more shallow. So even if we're still having those thoughts and we take the deep pranayama yoga breath, I mean, I don't know. I guess my worry thought right now is, what if it doesn't work, or is it going to work? How many times am I going to do? I have to be like lightheaded and breathing through my stomach all day to keep the thoughts away.
Well, put it this way. I think if your thoughts do run away with you like that, the best thing to do is just stop everything. Just stop. stop your thoughts, bring your mind into the present moment, and then just take a deep breath in and out, leave it at that, sit down, close your eyes, and just, focus on your breathing, just simply breathing in and breathing out. So not doing anything that's complicated, not doing a breathing exercise that you're worried won't work and, feel negative, because that will only increase your anxiety. So it's about bringing yourself back into the moment and back into control. Now, if you go through the book, you will learn a new breathing exercise every week, and you build on this sequence. As the weeks go by, you learn a new exercise that you'll practice for that week and add it onto the previous one. Now, once you've got the sequence and you feel confident about doing them, and you do them, you maybe practice 3 or 4 times a day, they are so powerful that your anxiety, your general anxiety state will have reduced. The acute anxiety, as in perhaps an anxiety or a panic attack, you'll find that you will be able to prevent them forming in the first place because of the constant daily practice of the sequence of exercises. So they can work as instant first aid, or they can work generally over a period of time and work as a preventative. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think so. I think the key is really what you mentioned before, that it's the daily practice, making it a habit where, when you first start out, you might not notice huge changes. But if you start doing this every day for 12 weeks, at the end of 12 weeks, when you look back, you're going to notice some big changes that might not even occur to you until you take the time to look back.
Well, that's very true. And at the beginning of the book, there are some self-assessment tools whereby you assess, how high your stress levels are, and you assess your ability to cope with life, to cope with the stress in your life. And so you get to reassess at the end of every week. And so you'll notice that your scores are rising or falling. And I think by the time you get to the end of your 12 weeks, you'll be feeling a lot better, and you'll be able to cope much more easily. So you'll see a gradual increase in your coping ability, and a gradual increase in happiness and feeling more relaxed, and feeling that actually, yes, you can do all these things. So I don't think it will be a shock at the end of the 12 weeks, because you will have gradually been getting better and better as the days go on.
Mary, it's just about time for DJ Chrysorific to come in here with Parts Unknown. And this has been Synchronicity Talk Radio for your mind, body, and soul. We've been speaking with Mary Heath. She's the author of Get Your Life Back, a 12-week journey to overcome stress, anxiety, depression. And you can also find her at maryheath.co.uk. So what do you think? Is there anything else that you want to touch on before we wrap up the show?
Well, I think it's important to mention that the book isn't just about breathing exercises and relaxation. There are many things that will help a person not only to build up their resource bank in coping with stress and depression, but it will help them understand, what is going on for them. It will build their self-awareness, and, not only their mental and emotional health, but their physical health as well. There are CBT exercises, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming exercises to do, and these are just one-off things that, you can just practice and see how they work for you. So there's quite an eclectic mix of various techniques and therapies over a wide range of therapeutic disciplines. And the benefits are quite wide-ranging. So it's not just about reducing your stress and managing your anxiety and making your depression go away. I think it can help to enhance the quality of your life. And I think my book is for everyone, really. It's not just for people with stress, anxiety, and depression. I think it's a book of life tools, really. And I hope that it can help people lead a happier life and a more successful life, too.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time, Mary. It's been such a pleasure, and I'm going to spend more time with your book, going through it day to day and working on those exercises, so I'm really happy to have it.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, have a great day, or a great night in England.
Yes, it's a great night. Yes. Thank you very much for having me, Marie. It's been a great experience for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. Take care.
Thank you.